and JJ Harper. Thank you for joining us today.
All right, next up we have Lois and Joyce to give our KPAD report.
Good afternoon. Well, we survived. Well, we think we did. Anyway, I want to take a moment to express a sincere gratitude to all of you who dedicated your time and energy this past weekend to our KPAD breakfast. Such a resounding success for all of us. I also want to thank our key clubs who were fabulous this weekend. We could not have done it without the key club. And of course, our action club. And we want to give them another, I want them to stand up. Key club or action club, please stand up. It's John, JJ, John, Robin, Sarah, Robbie. They were there Friday and Saturday. So we want to definitely give you a big thank you for being a part of our Kiwanis Club. Thank you. Woo-hoo. And the most important part to our whole organization this year was Mike McAvoy. Is Mike on the? Oh, hey, Mike. We could not have done this without the pre-planning that Mike McAvoy had in place. Because if you know, we had a little trouble there at the Civic Center. And if it hadn't been for Mike's pre-work, this machine would not have worked as well as it did. So a big shout out to Mike McAvoy. Yeah. So you know we were collecting money today and we collect money next week. So go through all of your clothes because you know you have money stuffed somewhere in those clothes. I find it often in mine. So go through your clothes, see some money, pick it up off the street, wherever you see it, get it, bring it here. We need it next week. And then we will have our wrap up on June the 11th. So that's going to be the big party day to announce our grand totals. Yeah, sell your tickets at a discount early for next year, maybe. All right, Lois has this week's totals.
And you guys, let's give it up for Joyce Montgomery. She did it. She did it. Okay, so these numbers are from the money that was turned in last week. Okay, so it does not include anything that came in on Saturday or that came in today. This is for last week, week 8. All right. So our superheroes for week 8, Mike Bell turned in $500. Go, Mike. And we had 5 Kiwanians turn in $350 last week. So Alex Bowman, Bob Bradshaw, Nancy Horn, Greg Lineberger, and myself. So way to go, you guys, superheroes. Woo! And so our cumulative as of today, Rupert actually had more turned in from last time. So he's making sure he's got that commanding lead there. Had a little bit of jostling in there, but still look at this. And I think I did the numbers from these people on the screen right now. It totals over $14,000 just from these folks on the screen. So $14,000, that's amazing. Thank you guys very much, very much. All right. And so our team standings, you guys look, I'm out at the bottom. I told you Love's Given Money was going to bloom late, and we did. We're in 5th place. I'm so proud. Okay. So Transformers keeping that lead at 91. Can they make it to 10,000? Wouldn't that be awesome to have a team go over 10,000? I don't know that we've ever had that before. So Transformers, Chris Rouse up there at the top, Determinators, Jay Galden at 70.97, Overachievers 69.33. If the race is getting tight, Chargers are nipping at the heels at the overachievers. So Burt Boyd's come in at 67.52. Loves Giving Money at 56.32. We are not at the bottom. Love it. And then Community, Hugh Brown, sorry, but your 55.75 is still something to be proud of. So our Transformers, Chris Rouse has asked me to give the $100,000 bar this week to another huge player in a K-Pad this year, Donna Lynch. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's Betsy Bohannon. Donna, I love you, girl. You did great. Donna was last week. Betsy and Betsy's husband Chris. I could not have done drinks without Chris, so that goes for Chris too. Thank you, Betsy. I appreciate you. Awesome. And then Hugh. Is Hugh here today? Anybody on Hugh's team want to accept the 0 candy bar? Come on. Oh, Jean. Woohoo! Yeah, we are hoping that some of these rankings will change next week because what telling everybody, and Joyce mentioned that we have one more week to turn in money. Okay. So we want to make sure that happens. So our total for week 8 was 41.11. You guys, for week 8, that's awesome. So good job, everybody. That was awesome. So our cumulative now, our cumulative to date as of last week is 41,000, just over 41,000. So that means that we have averaged over 5,000 every week. That's phenomenal, you guys. So excited about that. And we're at 82% of our goal. So I really think we can get to 100%. We can do it. And we joke about it, the discounted tickets that you can sell now, but you guys really think about what we do, and on the back of the ticket, all the organizations that we help. And so what I want to focus on right now is Joyce and I have a goal of 0 zeros. And what that means is that we want every Kiwanian, every single Kiwanian to turn in something. $5, $10. If we have half, I think we've had half of our club. So roughly 75 people in our club have not turned in anything. And so if they just turned in $10, you guys, that's $750. And if they turned in $20, that's another $1,500. That gets us closer. So just anything. And like I told the team captains, every little bit adds up to a lot. So even if you think it's small, it's really not. It adds up, and we really appreciate it because the more that we can raise, the more we can give, and that is our superpower. Okay. So turn in more money next week and we'll give you the final totals. And again, just to echo everybody else's, thank you for the K-Pad. We had so much fun on Saturday, and I think I'm still sore from Saturday. Thank you all for everything that you've done.
Well, that is some awesome news. And that 1,500 that Lois mentioned is actually a grant. That's a whole grant that we would give out to an organization. So, that's a great way to think about the impact of just a few dollars. Okay, we've got some announcements. Our fund committee is meeting at 1:35 today. And we have the book club tonight at 6 p.m. at South County. Activity that we're group that we're doing with Shiloh Baptist. That's going to have a Zoom meeting on Friday, 8 to 9 a.m. And the prayer breakfast committee is having their wrap up meeting. That's also a Zoom, and that's also Friday, and it will be immediately after the fun day committee meeting. Okay. I know we're all tired from KPAD, but we're not out of the woods yet on volunteering. So we still need some sweat equity out of folks. We've got our kids fishing day coming up this Friday at Hope Tree. So, thank you. This Saturday at Hope Tree was from 9 to noon. And Bob Rutherford has asked me to make a special appeal for 2 people to help register the kids who show up at the kids fishing day. So you would need to be there at 8:30 in the morning on Saturday. Please, please, please let Mike Bell or Bob Rutherford know if that's something that you can help with. Okay. The second thing we've got is our nature garden. So now we're in the summer months and we need some caretakers. On your table are sign-up sheets to pick a week to help take care of the nature garden, watering once it gets dry again, and just generally making sure everything looks okay. So if we can help with that, that would be much appreciated. All right, we're going to do some brag bucks. I know we've got several folks who want to do brags. I'm going to kick off the brags. On your table is a small purple flyer. This is our Film Lab showcase at the Grandin Theater. Now, the Grandin Film Lab was one of our grant recipients this year, and so the funding from that grant goes toward the Film Lab students, and the students are all going to be showcasing their films on the big screen at the Grandin Theater. It's May 27th at 7 p.m. Please grab a flyer. You can certainly ask me questions. We'd love to have you show up and see these amazing students work. They're about 10 minutes each film. Okay, who's next for brags?
Joe Lemmer here. On your tables, you'll find 3 handouts that I left. They're all for Ronald McDonald House. The first one is asking for volunteers with the Daleville benefit. They put on a concert and they get benefits money from it. That's June 14th. If you're interested, it's the evening of the 14th. You can sign up on the sheet and I will contact you. The other sheet, as I talked about a couple of weeks ago, is about making lunches for the families of the kids who are hospitalized. That meets every other Tuesday. The next Tuesday they meet is the 27th of May. If you're interested in that, it's putting sandwiches together and then they're distributed to the families through the weeks. And the third sign-up sheet is if anybody's interested in cooking or sponsoring or paying for a dinner that they provide for the families at Ronald McDonald House every night, you can sign up. There are the contact informations at the bottom of the sheet. That's usually about 30 to 35 people. So it'd be a big meal if you like to cook or if you like to donate or have someone catered at your expense. That's what they're looking for. So if you're interested, again, these sheets are on your table. Thank you.
Larry Kufel, the Key Club advisor at Cave Spring High School. I know Gene had a shout out for the Key Clubbers that helped us last Saturday at the pancake breakfast, but Cave Spring Key Club showed up with 57 members to help us out. And Miss Houston, who is their faculty advisor, showed up with them. So I want to shout out, give a big hand for the Cave Spring Key Club.
Don Wilson. I have a couple of brags today. First is on our speaker today, Blair Graniger. When I heard that a member of my staff was going to be speaking, I thought, boy, that sounds like a shameless plug for my company. So I thank Lois James for making that shameless plug for me. Thank you. I couldn't be more proud of Blair. She's been with me 13 years and does a great job. Yes, I can be more proud than I am of Blair. I'm proud of my daughter, Jessica, who delivered a baby girl last Wednesday. I was so hoping during the presentation from the Huddle group, the lady that was the Huddle moms, that golly, I wish I'd get that announcement right now. I can make that announcement. But lo and behold, she was born at 6:14 last Wednesday afternoon. Bria Brooklyn Twine came in at 19.5 inches, 7 pounds, 6 ounces at 6:14 p.m. and had the 13 years that Blair's been with me. And I got some convoluted check I'm going to give to the foundation. I love my daughter and I really love my granddaughter. And I love my wife, Joanna, who's with me here today too. Thank you.
Wow, that's a hard one to follow. I'm James Matthews. I was happy to see the Grandin Film Lab flyer on the table and to see that we sponsored them. I'm only up here to say that I can't vouch for the students' work, but one of these films, I think it's the All in the Family one, was partially filmed at my house. So I'm not in there. You might hear me sneezing or burping in the background, depending on how well they do the sound. Can't vouch for their work, but I have a kick-ass house, so come see it.
On behalf of the Film Lab, we are so appreciative that community members do let our students in their homes to film because it's very critical to what the kids are doing. Okay, any other brag bucks? Nope. All right. Well, then it's my pleasure to introduce Lois James, who's going to introduce today's speaker.
Awesome. And my shameless plug is that before I introduce Blair, I'll tell you, Blair and I go back way back. We went to high school together. So we will tell you how many years ago that was, but I've known Blair for a very long time. Love her. Okay, so after a 30-year career in the building industry, Blair was introduced to Dawn Wilson in 2013, beginning her career with Evergreen Memorial Trust, focusing her talents in their Boones Mill location at Mountain View Memorial Park and Forest Rest Natural Cemetery. Her compassion and expertise in customer service lends the perfect combination to serve her clients in the community. Originally from the Allegheny Highlands, whoop, whoop, she raised her daughter in Franklin County. Blair enjoys spending her free time with her family and friends and making and playing music. She's an incredible musician, as is her daughter. So very excited to welcome Blair.
Thank Lois for the invitation. When I reached out to Don and said, hey, Lois reached out to me to see if I can speak at Kiwanis. I just want to make sure it's okay. And he was like, yeah. So Lois and I do go back a long ways. And I was going to say the same thing. We just won't talk about how long, but many, many moons ago. And it's been great reconnecting with her. As she mentioned, I've been with the company for a while. I was fortunate enough to be placed in Boones Mill, which houses Forest Rest Natural Cemetery. It's become very near and dear to my heart. I like to talk about it. I know we've had lunch. This is not your general topic of conversation for dinner or lunch, but it's something that we all need to talk about. And it is something best to talk about before you actually need it. So that's something we encourage. So natural burial. This way. Oh, that worked out great. So what started the movement? Most of you, if you've experienced grief in your life, you're used to cemeteries. And the typical cemetery is, sorry, getting used to going this way and going this way. What we desire to do is listening to our clients, making sure we have every option that is available for that final chapter of our lives. That's one thing I've commended Don about when I first met him, as well as growing with the company. We stay ahead of what people want. And that makes us the professional of being able to answer all of those questions for everyone. But with the natural burial, it offered an environmentally friendly option for burial because not everybody wants to do the traditional burial anymore. It's a more economical option as well, and it's very simplistic. We mark our graves with a stone. We don't have to have a vault, and I'll get into that a little bit more, but there's nothing quite like having a service in Forest Rest, being covered and canopied with trees. We've had chipmunks run through. We have deer that come through. there is a bear, and I have said hello to him, but he's very friendly, and we agree to keep distance. But he doesn't mess with anything. So what most people are used to is going through the cemeteries and you'll see a monument. You might see bronze memorials. You might see granite memorials that lay flat on the ground. We have our mausoleums. We have our niches for cremations. We have columbariums for cremations. We have our Beatree program, which has become extremely popular for us. And a lot of people make use of that. And that's also a green option. It's a little contradictory because of the cremation and being green, but it does give another option because we're putting a tree back into the environment and helping with the air. And then we have green burial. As I mentioned, this is nestled in the woods. It's peaceful. You'll feel the breeze when the cicadas are out and the birds are out. It's like an orchestra going off down in Forest Rest. But again, it allows us to go back to the earth. Personally, I was always going to be cremated. I've decided to do Forest Rest. And I know of one other person that has decided to do that as well. So when it started, back in 1998, Billy Campbell opened up the Ramsey Creek Preserve in South Carolina. Little did he know what he was going to start. In 2005, the Green Burial Council was developed, and that is a council that you have to be approved by, and there's certain guidelines you have to meet to be able to have a green burial, or excuse me, a big green burial cemetery. In 2012, we opened up Forest Rest. And we're considered a hybrid cemetery. And that means that it is encompassed in a total of 35 acres, but 5 acres is dedicated to Forest Rest. So we are green burial, but if you look us up, we're referred to as a hybrid because we offer what most people consider today as traditional versus strictly green burial. Is it a fad? I don't think so. And my call logs is just a testimony to that. We get 3 to 4 calls a week, and it's not going to slow down. In December of 2024, the Green Burial Council reported that there's 41 hybrid cemeteries in the U.S. There's 23 natural cemeteries in the U.S., and there's 9 conservation cemeteries. This is a 19% increase from 2024 as far as people being interested in natural burial. Over 68% of people that funeral homes meet with are interested in natural burial. And I see it in myself because a lot of times I'll be talking to a family and I'll mention Forest Rest and they'll go, "What's that? Is that legal?" That's the same question I asked Don when he interviewed me. Is that legal? He said, if it wasn't legal, I wouldn't be doing it. I was like, okay, that's good enough for me. But everybody seems to be interested in it. It's not for everyone, but there are more leaning towards it than away from it. Just this month in March, I didn't have a lot of services in my cemetery, but 3 of those services were Forest Rest. 2 of them were prearranged. Families came in, made all their decisions, had everything taken care of. 1 was an at-need, and that person passed away in Richmond, and he came all the way from Richmond. We have people coming from all over the state, as well as North Carolina, Maryland. I've got one lady that will be coming back from Texas. So it's possible. So what is natural burial? It's the removal of the conventional barriers between the body and nature. It involves burying the body, in biodegradable casket or shroud. You can do either or. Excuse me. We bury the dead in a natural setting without a lot of equipment and resources. You have the option to machine dig or hand dig a grave. And if it's hand dug, we hand dig. We've had a couple of people that have opted to do that because they want to be as green as possible. But you can also opt for a machine dug interment. All the graves are hand filled. Sometimes the families involve themselves in helping to fill the grave. Other times they don't even want to see a shovel. But more than likely, a family or friend is going to be involved with placing a couple shovels of dirt in. And I've found that it is therapeutic in the grieving process for the families. So, as I'll talk about in a minute, we walk down, we escort that person to the grave. We're standing around the grave as they're lowered. As they're filling the grave, that's that final step of carrying that person to the end of their journey. And there's something comforting that I have found with working with my families and experiencing the services. They feel like they walk that person through that final step. It allows a more intimate experience, just as I just explained. I've had classical music played down there. I've had instruments down there. I've had one service where it was just me. And we treat each person with everything that they need. And it's important for knowing and meeting the person before they pass, knowing what they want, as well as knowing what the family needs to be able to start that journey of their grieving process. It also leaves a smaller carbon imprint. I mentioned a minute ago that it's kind of an oxymoron. Cremation is green. We kind of offset that by planting a tree and we're cleaning the air with the tree. But there's a lot of carbon monoxide that's placed out in the atmosphere with each cremation. There's a lot of fossil fuel that's burned with cremation. Some of you may have heard of the aquatic cremation. That's not legal in Virginia as of yet, but it just seems odd that fresh water is supposed to be a commodity, but we're using water for cremation. It just doesn't make sense to me. So how does it work? And this gets into some interesting questions that some of you may want to ask in a little bit. So the graves are only 3.5 to 4 feet deep. I mentioned 4 feet because it depends on the terrain. We always want to keep the bottom of the graves level, so it varies. This places the body at a depth where there's greater oxygen flow, which allows the bacteria to grow to help the body decompose, makes it more rapid. We actually place natural materials in the bottom of the grave, like leaves. And so if you think about Mother Nature and her, if you've ever had a compost area, having that moisture and bacteria will help the body decompose and go back to the earth and feed the forest, because that's the whole intent of the natural burial. When we finish the grave, we actually leave a mound of dirt. And when I'm talking to families, I mentioned back when I was a kid and watching the Westerns with my dad, you'd always see a grave and it would have rocks over top of it. So we have a mound of dirt that goes over the grave. That varies if the person is buried in a shroud or if they're buried in a casket, because that mound of dirt will eventually level down so that it becomes even with the regular terrain of where they're buried. And as I mentioned, Mother Nature knows what she's doing. There are no odors. The graves are not disturbed in any way. Natural plantings take place. Some of you might know a gentleman by the name of Andre Perdue. He had Perdue exterminating. Andre is buried in our cemetery in Forest Rest, and he wanted to be a tree, but he did not want to be cremated. He has 9 volunteer pine and cedar trees growing on his grave, and I just don't have the heart to do anything about them. So it's always neat to go down and go, okay, Andre, what you've got growing now? So this is the entrance of Forest Rest. We don't allow vehicles in unless we're preparing for a grave. We do have a golf cart at our location, and I am happy to take people down. There's a couple gentlemen that live over at Brandon Oaks that likes to visit Mr. Dixon, and they'll call and say, "Hey, we're coming down to have lunch. Can you take us down?" And so they have their little chairs, they have their little box lunch, they go down and visit, and then they call me when they're ready to come back up. We have a lot of natural plants in the area as well. It's beautiful during the spring as well as summer and fall. Every spring, we generally have a fawn or two. And this one likes to bed, well, this one was bedded down in this little natural area that's just part of the natural undeveloped area of the cemetery. But you'll see those little ears perking up every spring. So this is an example of a lady that came to us from Charlottesville. Her shroud was made by her family, and it was made of all of her theatrical silk dresses. The shroud, the tray that she's being carried in, which was lowered into the grave with her, was actually made by her daughter. And she's never done woodwork before this. She said she'll never do any more after doing this, but it was absolutely beautiful. I mentioned they came to us from Charlottesville. I would guess. So they wanted to escort her down to her grave, which we allow people to do. If they are not doing that, then we have a cart that we place the deceased on, be it a shroud or casket. We allow people to walk alongside as if they're pallbearers or family members, again, escorting down. But this was a family that was extremely involved with the burial of their mother and grandmother and girlfriend. The gentleman at the back, that was his girlfriend that was being buried. They actually wanted to be very involved in filling the grave as well. So this is at the grave itself. That's after the grave. To the right is when the grave was dressed and they were placing flowers. The daughter, which has been over there, she actually came back last fall because she was moving to Maine. And so she brought a lot of natural plants and wildflowers, and she planted them on her mom's grave. And we do allow that to be done. This is an example of the memorials that we do at the grave. They're a native stone that's sandblasted with your name, date of birth, and date of death. Each one is unique. Each one is handpicked. This is an example of a grave that once the grass has begun growing again, and you can see the mound there. This was a young man that came to us from Virginia Beach. His life was cut short. He wanted to be a tree, but I was able to find a spot in the forest to where we could do the Be a Tree program. His family didn't think that he was going to have very many people there because he was from Virginia Beach and Jonathan was only 20 years old. But he would go to a camp somewhere up above Harrisburg, and he loved the mountains of Virginia. So they decided to have him at Forest Rest. 9 a.m. I got to the cemetery. The service was at 1. There were already people in the cemetery waiting. So there were over 200 people at this service, probably ranging from 3 up into their 80s. And there were so many young kids that he either camped with or he was a camp counselor too. And that's what this circle is, because they had a cheer, in a sense, that they would do at the end. And this is a good representation of the relaxed feeling of Forest Rest. I tell ladies real often, do not wear heels. You're not going to be comfortable. But I've had people in three-piece suits and I've had people in jeans, and it's either way you want to go. But it's a very relaxed feel. And it's one of those situations to where once you've escorted your loved one, your friend, your family member to their final destination, I've had many people tell me that there's a piece that they walk away from the service with. And when they come back to visit, there's a peace that they feel because they're in amongst the woods and they're feeling the breeze and they're hearing the birds and they're hearing the other little wildlife that's going around. And in all of our cemeteries and within Evergreen Memorial Trust, I think you get that feeling in all of our cemeteries because we try to have the trees. There's always a breeze in our cemeteries. But there is a special peaceful feeling that you have with each natural burial. Is it, but has it played? Now that's the special touch in Franklin County. You could stop it. It was just so ironic that if any of you have ever been turkey hunters, you know that if you shot call in the morning, you'll get a gobble gobble. Well, when joy was shouted, somewhere there was a hound nearby, and she or he echoed out her joy yell as well. So I would encourage each and every one of you, if you haven't had the conversations with your families, your loved ones, about what you want to do, if you haven't taken care of those arrangements, start those conversations. Maybe not over lunch, maybe not over dinner, but start having those conversations. I've worked with families that have made no plans, and I've worked with families that have everything taken care of. And 100% of the time, the family says, I'm so glad mom took care of this. I'm so glad dad took care of this. I'm so glad I was able to make these decisions with my wife, with my husband. There's no greater gift that you can give to your loved ones. There's no greater peace of mind that you can give to yourself. And when you need to speak to a professional, whether we help you or not, please give us a call. We'll be happy to address any questions that you have. Thanks for having me today. You get to ask questions today. Does anyone have anything? Yes, sir. The question is, there a body preparation at all? I encourage people to still go through the funeral homes because the body is going to need to be cleaned. It's going to need to be prepared to either go in the casket, to be dressed, or to be wrapped in the shroud. In the state of Virginia, you are not required to go through a funeral home, but they provide such a valuable service to the families. And not to be rude or crude, but there is a reason why the term dead weight was put out there, because if you ever try to handle someone that's fast asleep, it's not like carrying our children when they were little. You're dealing with an adult. So I would urge you to go to a funeral home. All of the funeral homes in the valley are familiar with the natural process. And when I've worked with families outside of our area, I encourage them, have the funeral home call me. I'll address every question that you have. We'll walk through it together. We'll get to where we need to be and honor this person. Thank you, sir. Anything else? No, they are not. So we encourage people when they're doing a casket to use pine or to use poplar. There are felt caskets out there. There are wicker caskets out there. We don't want to use an oak, a maple, cherry. We just don't want to use those precious hardwoods to be buried and use something that's a little bit more viable. Yes, sir. Thank you, Doc. I'm sorry, sir. Right. It's so the point you're making, sir, is that the pine and the poplar is easier to break down? Yes, thank you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. They do. They're a softer wood. So if you think about using an oak, maple's kind of soft, but it's still harder than your pine or your poplar. Thank you, sir. Got another one? Yes, sir. So the question is the hardwood casket, is going to make it harder for the person to decompose? Not necessarily for the person to decompose, but the casket itself is going to take longer to break down. And so with that all kind of happening together, it makes it a friendlier transition. I'm sorry, sir. Oh, would it turn into, okay, the question was, would the hardwood turn into a mummy? No, no. Things are going to happen inside of that casket, whether that casket is breaking down or not. I failed to mention this. Generally, all of my clients have opted not to be embalmed. That's one of the benefits of the green burial. But I've had one client, because of her service that she was having, she opted to be embalmed, and there is a green approved embalming fluid that can be used that still meets within the requirements of the green burial. Let's say you're traveling and you pass away, but you're coming back to forced rest. The quickest way to get you back is to fly you, and you will have to be embalmed to fly. So there is still a way to have you meet the requirements to get you back quickly. Yes, ma'am. Okay. The question is what type of maintenance we do at the cemetery. All of our cemeteries, including forest rest, are perpetual care. That means once you purchase your property, the goods and the services that you do at our cemeteries, we're not going to come to you asking you, hey, can you chip in? We need to mow this week. Any repairs, any road repairs, anything, we take that upon ourselves. And that's one of the benefits of all of Evergreen Memorial Trust properties. I had a lady come in Sunday. I happened to be at the cemetery on Sunday, and she was having trouble with her flower vase. Wrote up a work order, had them take care of it on Monday, and it's all taken care of. What we want you to do when you're visiting a loved one in our cemetery is to come enjoy the beauty of the cemetery itself, reflect and share memories of that person, have some laughs talking about the memories, meditate, whatever the case may be. Bring your kids, let them ride their bikes, fly a kite. The cemetery isn't a solely solemn place. It's a place of life. It's where life continues. And I'll share this quick story. Joe Kennedy was our first burial, and I'm sure a lot of you know Joe. Used to write for the Roanoke Times, A Cup of Joe. And his daughter was not married when he passed. But in that time since he passed, she has gotten married. In fact, I was part of that proposal. Her husband is a filmmaker, and he flew all the way from Los Angeles back to little Boonesville, Virginia. Videoed. My daughter gave her a rose that she had gotten the night before so he could lay a rose on Joe's grave, and he visited the grave and had a moment there, and then flew back to Los Angeles and proposed to her with this video of everything he did with his great trip across the West Coast to the East Coast and back. But then they surprised me about a year later and came and had a little girl. And then they come about every 2 years. A couple years later, they came with a little boy. So that life that Joe started with the birth of his daughter, it continues and it continues, and they keep coming back. And some are buried along with their family members. But the cemetery is not a place of solemn sadness. It's where life continues, and it's where we continue to honor those that we have in our cemeteries. Thank you. Another question? Yes, sir. Sure. Anywhere from 7 to 10 years. So I can generally tell by the mound of dirt as to when the body has completely decomposed. That mound is going to lower with a shroud burial quicker than with a casket burial because there's more airspace. But I don't want, if we've overfilled a mound, because it's very hard to judge how much everything is going to settle. And if we've overfilled a mound, I don't want to disturb it for at least 10 years. And then what I do at that point is I shave off anything that's growing, take the extra dirt away because we're not disturbing the grave, and then lay that growth back on the grave so that the forest continues to regenerate itself over and over again.
Okay, I know. I just want to say something real quick. We have a few minutes. And the reason I chose Blair to talk to us today is because of my personal experience. And when my dad passed away, he had everything taken care of. And it was such a gift to me, being the POA and executor, that dad took care of everything. And so I thought, you know what, I need to do the exact same thing for my kids. And so I went to see Blair. And if you guys know me, I'm a hippie. I'm very natural. And I'm also claustrophobic. So there's like no way in hell I'm going to get in a casket and be buried. That's not going to happen. Okay. And so Blair helped me with that. And you guys, I even got to choose my own shroud. It is beautiful. I got to pick my own shroud to be buried in. And it just is peace of mind for me. And I thought, if that was such a peace of mind for me to give that gift to my children, that they don't have to make all those decisions in that time of sadness, that's what I wanted to give them. And it also, I thought, I didn't know about those options. And so I thought I wanted to share that with you guys because I had no idea those options were available. Because I've just always thought of the traditional burials. So I just really wanted Blair to come and explain that to you all today because it was such a blessing for me that I wanted to share that with you, just to give you food for thought on something that you might not have thought about before. So that was my 2 cents.
Well, thank you, Blair. I thought that was very interesting myself. And thank you, Lois, for that great testimonial. I think there's going to be some conversations when we get home later. We have a small honorarium that we are giving to Blair today, and she has asked that this go to Healing Strides, which we're familiar with, and this is in honor of Missy Thomas. All right, folks. Well, we're actually going to adjourn 7 minutes early today. Don't forget, we need a couple of registration folks on Saturday at the Kids Fishing Day. Enjoy the rest of your week.